Hey everyone, and welcome to Lift, a podcast where we find out how different business owners are uplifting the people around them. My name is Manish and I run Catalyst Content. Today, I'm in conversation with my good friend Sana Hosseini, who owns and runs two top-performing Aussie home loans branches, including one in flood-struck Lismore, New South Wales. But today we are not going to be talking about mortgages and interest rates, thank you very much. Instead, we're going to be talking about how to create a thriving work environment, people and culture. So Sana's strategies at first seem deceptively simple when you first hear them, but really, he backs it up with some really interesting stories on how they play out. Sana, welcome to Lift. When we were chatting earlier about long to-do lists, you were saying that that's actually not a bad thing.
I have this mental model, and anyone that tells me that they're busy, I would prefer to tell them that they're getting what they deserve.
What do you mean?
If your list isn't long, it means that no one calls you and no one wants what you are selling or doing. You are doing such wonderful things for people that they want more of it. And so you're getting exactly what you deserve. And so that helps me to go, okay, if I'm busy, that's actually a compliment and it's a good thing.
So where most people kind of stressed out and have a lot of anxiety because they've got long to-do lists, you are there thinking about this and saying, hey, you know what? This is just affirmation that I'm doing a great job.
It's gratitude. It's basically living in a moment of like, I'm grateful for my long list. I'm grateful that people want things from me. And also they see that capability in me that they want me to do things for them.
So you're on item 1, right?
Okay.
And somebody on kind of item 19 is in a hurry. He's, feeling the urgency, on his end. And he says to you, you know what? Get to 19 or else I'm taking my business elsewhere. I mean, how do you respond to people putting pressure on things down your priority list?
If it's something I should be doing, I am comfortable enough to know that I am worth waiting for.
Yeah, okay.
If there is something that it's meant to be for me to do, I will definitely get to it. I've already planned for the deadlines that they told me at the very beginning of the process. If I couldn't have met them, I would have told them at the very beginning, hey, I can't meet it. Sometimes halfway in between, they may get nervous or concerned, or a lot of the time we don't know what they're thinking. It might have been that someone asked them about the project and now they are going to try to put that pressure that they felt onto me. Whereas I'm like, no, I know my deadline. I've already scheduled it. I've definitely got enough time to organize it. And that calm is like, I think a lot of the time people just want to know that you're still thinking about it. You haven't forgotten, you know where the project's up to. And as long as you let them know, hey, I'm really looking forward to do it and I'm worth waiting for, if that makes sense. Like as in there's a reason why I'm busy.
Yeah, of course.
Like they could take it to someone that's not busy, but they're also getting what they deserve.
Yeah, I get it. So have you always had this kind of self-assurance and this kind of relaxed attitude? Or is this something that developed slowly, or was there like some kind of turning point in your career where you kind of came to this realization
I think it's
that you're worth waiting for?
Yeah, I think it began when I started employing team members and staff members. And as the team grew, that comfort in that space. Because if it was work related, I worked out a long time ago that I need to run my teams at 70%. So my teams generally are running around 70% capacity. There is always capacity to do more. And I'm not pushing them to the point where they're going to burn out or hate their lives, like because they're struggling or not see their families or put that kind of, or put pressure where their families are saying, hey, why are you working so hard? But if I meet someone and they need some work done, I know that there's always capacity in my team and I can come back and say, hey, I'd love to introduce you to Sophie, James, Pete, and they'll take care of it from now. So that gives me that reassurance that we can take care of it.
So again, where did this kind of realization happen? Was there a moment that kind of triggered this realization, this shift in kind of thinking?
Whoa. Okay.
Because a lot of people will look at that and say, hey, you know what? I'm underutilizing my team. I'm not being efficient. But you're saying that, hey, actually, a bit of breathing room makes a big difference in terms of efficacy as opposed to efficiency.
Okay, so there's two answers here. One's my grandma and one is a landlord I had years ago. So I'm a Baha'i. We grew up in a home where spirituality is spoken about. There's this concept called confirmation,
Right.
where you're doing something and you're on the right path, so things work out. I've heard people describe it as you're in flow, or you're in line with the universe, or like you're following the right path, or all of those kind of things. I've heard it, but in our home, it was always called confirmation.
So it's like, doors just open.
100%. And if you're on the right path.
Right. Okay.
And so growing up, mom was like, we're a business family. So the whole sort of family, generationally, we've always been in business. And mom, when I got to around sort of 15 and we're having these discussions, she's like, when you start your business, you just got to follow the 3 H's of business.
Right.
And the 3 H's is sort of hard work, honesty, and there's this word called hu'u'ghala, which is quite a unique little word to the Baha'i community. And it's essentially that making sure that you contribute to the well-being of mankind. And so as long as you're doing those 3 things, business works out. And so that ends up putting you in like a bit of a flow state where you know that you're doing the right thing. So if someone ever calls you and they're upset, you know that you haven't caused that upset. There's something occurring, and you can just deeply listen to them and find out where the upset is, and you can normally fix it because you know that you're foundationally, you're meeting your 3 H's.
So your baseline philosophy is that as long as you're doing honest, hard work and kind of giving back to society, I imagine you mean that in terms of kind of both money, but also in terms of like service as well, perhaps, that things just have a funny way of working themselves out.
Always. In a way, when you describe it to others, it just sounds like that doesn't, how did that happen? And it's just so bizarre, but it just always seems to work out. And it's not just grandma, it's between mom, dad, grandma, granddad, like they were all had this business sense, and it was always little like stories about that. And so it sort of all built on, but it was always grandma that was like confirmation. She's like, are you feeling in that you're on the right path? And then kind of thing.
It reminds me of the times where I accidentally double booked myself.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of wanting to call the client and say, hey, look, I really need, you don't want to do it to either client, but somehow, one of them is going to call you up and say, hey, you know what, can we please reschedule? And it's almost like you're doing them a favor when in effect, it's just this amazing, universe kind of just
taking care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, brilliant.
The other one was when I was starting my first business, there was a gentleman, Mr. Weir, and Mr. Weir had cerebral palsy when he was very young and was in a wheelchair and all those things. And there's a bunch of stories about him, but he had an assistant that had been with him for 16 years. And just starting out, I was amazed. I was like, someone's worked for him for 16 years. What's the secret? And so I was like, Mr. Weir, what's the secret? And he was like, the smile. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, where's this? Like, no, I want to know the secret. Like, what's the pay structures? Or do you do any kind of incentives or bonuses? Or like, is it like a training program that you have for them? Basically, he was like, no, Sana, there isn't such a thing. Just smile. And I've worked out over the years, and now like the business is coming into its 19th year, and it's been around a long time, but I've worked out that smile is the moment that you're going to catch yourself when a staff member asks you for something that you feel or you think may be impossible or not possible, to go in with that smile and then work it out. So for example, you might have a staff member that might be leaving to go to another country for 2 months, and they might be critical to your operations. Like everything depends on them, goes through them. And even though they're working at 70%, they are still working. And so that will affect things. Now, you've got 2 options as a business owner. You can just smile and go, hey, we'll work it out together. Or you can say, look, what were you thinking? This is impossible. You probably don't have enough annual leave, all those kind of things. But the smile option ends up meaning that you have a deep conversation. You work out that actually they have a family member over there that needs care, or they haven't seen their family in years, especially after COVID. So many families have been like, especially with staff members that have families overseas, they've been separated for so long. And then between the staff member and myself, we worked out, well, actually, you've got a laptop, you can work anywhere. You Well, you're used to working a couple of days a week from home anyway. How many hours can you do? Maybe I can do 6 hours a day. Perfect. 6 hours a day, work from where you are. We'll send you this. This is the workflow system we're going to use. And just because you went in with a smile, because that staff member, the value that they create for your business is immense. You've spent years with them. But just with that little moment of catching yourself when you're like, what's going to happen in my business, to smile, you find that you can just find the most incredible, creative, joyful, loving, kind of caring experiences, which means that that staff member can leave and spend time with their families and then come back re-energized and so much more deeply connected to the business and yourself as a boss. And then you can, like, that synergy sort of flows through the business, and there's always that goodwill that gets built up over years because of such things.
The power of a smile.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like having such faith that things are going to work out, that you just trust. You choose not to kind of react or overreact or react in kind of a negative way, and you choose to kind of embrace whatever is coming your way and face it with kind of positivity, right? And
100%. And Abdul Bahad says that if you go in with joy, like everything just seems to, like our intellect is
keener.
Yeah,
yeah.
that one. It's I think that's basically going into it with that smile, no matter how difficult it is. It actually makes you a little bit overconfident though at times. So much so that you're actually, I have this thing that I do with the team. Whenever we do our reviews, it's not so much the review of their performance. It's what's the biggest problem that you have in your life right now? And it could be completely unwork related. And we sort of bring on that challenge, that basically we're so confident that as a team that we can, no matter what it is, and it might be that I'm worried about this family member or I have this friend or whatever it is, we actually bring in those problems into the office and we try to collectively solve them. And there's this amazing energy that goes in, that no matter how big it is, you find that your problem may seem huge to you, but if you've got a few other people working on it, you may be able to come up with a solution.
People you trust.
Yeah, that have it.
Who've smiled at you before when you've thrown the worst things at them.
Exactly. And you've got that energy that you can share back with them. Yeah, you can solve all kinds of things together.
Like most managers out there are trying to kind of get the most out of their staff, and you are spending time trying to find out what's going on in their lives. Could you share with me a little bit about, why you do this, and kind of when did you start doing this and for what reason?
I think it was with my first staff member. So my very first one. So her name was Sue Schouter, and she cared about my business in terms of, she would make sure that there was like little toy boxes. She's like, when people come in, they want to make sure that their kid is like calm and then they can focus with you. So what we need to do is put these elements in so that they can focus with you and their kids are comfortable. So all these little things. So it made it quite comfortable. And then my next staff member, Brian, who became like a brother, or is like a brother to me, his kids would always come into the office, and you'll find that work is a component of someone's life. But to get to really know who they are, because the aim is that if you work for me, it's not that you're there a year or two. It's that you grow with me, I grow with you, I learn what you can share. And that openness enables you to be more creative within my business. So I basically build a shell, and you can basically explore all bits of what you can do. And it's just got this comfortable framework that I've created, but it's all the you show within a framework.
That's brilliant. Okay, look, I must ask about your family. I want to know, you said your family's been business, your mom and dad. I'm not sure if your grandma as well. I'd love to hear about this kind of, what it's like to grow up in a family full of business owners and what that does to you.
Okay, so in terms of business, there is components. So grandma grew up from a business family as well. So she is Iranian or Persian from a place called Shiraz, also famous for grapes. You may see it on labels. And so they actually had 9 or 10 vineyards.
Oh, wow.
And so they grew up from a farming, but like business family from her side. Granddad was always in business. So from age 13, he actually was working in smelting. So you couldn't buy like spoons and forks just going to a shop and getting them. Someone would basically get metal and smelt them. And from a young age,
I see.
he actually was smelting spoons and forks and selling them. He basically started with a little blacksmith. He was very clever. He ended up starting his own business with his younger brother. And then he ended up, like towards the end of his sort of like working career, he owned companies producing and repairing combines for farming and those kind of things on the border between Iran and Iraq, that area.
Yeah, interesting.
And so he had been in business, and so much so that there was the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran, and so they had to leave. When he left, I don't know if it sort of makes sense, but like when he left with just the amount that he could sell in a very short time, they have lived off that till now.
Come on. So hold on, is Granddad still alive?
He's still alive, and he basically was working, but semi-working that entire time since.
So what year was this? What year did he leave?
This is like I think it's like 1978, 79, like a long time ago.
So for 40 years, he's lived off his kind of business income from the 70s.
Yeah.
Basically, right? So what does that do to you? I mean, that kind of story for me, I mean, having that kind of story in your family, perhaps as a huge kind of confidence booster and kind of real, I mean, he's set the bar.
Oh, definitely. Really high bar. And like mom has a doctorate in economic philosophy, and she'd looked into what makes villages, so two identical villages, one successful and one less successful, and what that difference is between those two kind of villages and what that sort of impact is. And, so after they were both sent to India to study.
So she studied business, I guess.
Economics.
She did her PhD in economics.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Spot on. And so she she's a Baha'i. Our family are from Baha'is generationally. And so the university wanted to do a study why there were some villages in India that were doing extremely well, but the identical village wasn't. And so it was incredible. Like, obviously, she had the entire doctorate on it. But one of the little simple things was that India has this caste system. And there are essentially these 4 castes, and there's higher class and middle classes. Actually, they have a business class as well, which is, in a way, which anyway is an interesting one. And so she found out that in one of the villages, for example, there might be 2 wells, one for, say, the untouchables or the lower class, and one for the higher sex. They would have a separate well. Whereas in the villages where there were predominantly Baha'is, they would only have one well, and it was twice as deep. And so one well there was always water, whereas when in times of drought, there was not water in the other village. And so the little simple things like that unity.
Is so interesting. So the deeper well always
that's
had
it,
more
because
water.
Yeah, because of that unity that was, and it was more the symbolic. It's like that smile.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not actually, the smile isn't the thing that makes it successful. It's that unity.
It's the inner attitude, eh?
It's the inner attitude.
It's the philosophy behind it. And what you're saying is this idea of unity, which perhaps is what you're transposing into your kind of teams, or a culture that you're trying to arise in your teams, has a power in itself.
Spot on.
To kind of unlock prosperity.
There are people that say, I don't like to go to work, or these kind of things. But as a business owner, if you don't like to go to work, there is a huge problem, because you picked everyone that you work with. Like every single person that works in your business, you selected. So if for any reason you don't like to go to work, it's your fault.
Yeah, totally.
And so I pick people that I like to hang out with and enjoy spending time with, and are all elite. Like, they're high performance, but with really human interactions. On last Thursday, one of the staff members decided that she would like to cook for us. And so as a team, we ate, but she brought everything from home, or we do lots of little social activities and things like that. But there is this unity. There is this interesting little thought experiment I want to do with you. So anytime I tell someone that I have a business that's quite successful, that's up 2,000 kilometers away, their instant response to me is, so you must have a manager up there. Or who manages it for you up there? But if I ask them, themselves, hey, Manish, if I was to manage you, like there's connotations around that in terms of standing behind you and watching your work and making sure that you're high performance and you're working hard, would you perform better? Or if I let you do your thing and actually get the work done?
I mean, for me, I have a lot of professional integrity and I care about my work. And I do not want anybody on my back because I want to have not just the freedom, but I want to know that I have a baseline of trust, from my clients, for example. And that baseline of trust allows me to be confident in what I do and therefore perform better. So definitely, I don't want a manager on my back.
I'll tell you a secret. No one does.
Yeah.
No one likes to be managed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There is this mental glitch that everyone has that is everyone else needs to be managed, whereas I don't like to be managed. And everyone knows that internally they don't like to be managed, whereas everyone just assumes everyone else does. And it's this basically, in terms of a management style, it's that I have your back. If something happens, you let me know the full picture of what's happened and I've got your back and we'll fix it together. That's it.
Yeah, how beautiful is that, huh? I mean, I feel like anybody whose manager tells them that, I mean, they feel more relaxed, and they can, as a result of being relaxed, they can just get on with it.
Spot on. And that mental freedom ends up meaning that you've got higher performing teams. It means that there's more sort of well-being. There's a there's a calmness, whereas in a lot of places, it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to meet my KPIs? You can ask any one of my team members in the last 19 odd years. I have never given them a KPI or a result that they need to hit or a number that they need to. You can ask any one of them. There's like a lot of them, and you can ask any one of them, hey, what's the number you're meant to hit? In our workplace, we have a concept. We have a process. If we follow the process, the results will take care of themselves. As long as you follow the process, you're completely safe, because those processes, you've given your staff members and your team enough freedom to refine those processes, have the confidence to influence those processes, all of that kind of stuff. And so that enables the results. And so you find that there's this freedom, there's this creativity, that people just take care of the stuff. And then it's amazing. Like a lot of my team, I don't exactly know how they do what they do. But if I ask them, they will create a manual for me that trains the next person incredibly well. And this is one of the little sort of secrets to our business, is that the last person that we employ trains the next person that comes into the business. And we find that the fact that you've elevated them to the step of trainer or teacher or whatever that is, or mentor for the next staff member, means that they have to learn the things that maybe the gaps that they didn't know in their knowledge, because they want to be able to teach it. But they're also feeling empowered because they are now a more senior person that they are now teaching. And so their performance goes up.
They're motivated to grow.
Motivated to grow.
Yeah, and the teaching kind of reinforces their growth. Yeah, totally.
And also the trigger to employ the next person in my business is always the last person that joined.
What do you mean?
So say, for example, you have a staff member, say Saroja, she will tell you, hey, we've got a bit too much work on. And that'll be the trigger.
I'm at 75%.
I'm at 75%. That's your trigger to go and employ the next person. Yeah, because basically between the 10 other people, if you pick up 5% from each of those, you've got 50% of work for the next person. And so they feel secure in their work, that the next person isn't going to take their job or any of that kind of energy. It's I chose for that next person to come and join the business. They're also included in the interview panel. So there's a vested interest.
Because they're joining a community.
That's it. There's a vested interest in that person doing well because they selected them. They were on the interview panel. They said yes to that person.
They're accountable for their choice.
They're accountable.
If they're not happy, hey,
they made the choice.
You picked.
That's it. And so that vested interest in them doing well, then training them. And so that energy just sort of builds on each other. There's a thing that I read years ago. I think it was Richard Branson, who gets quoted way too much, but he's just so good that you have to quote him. It's like, is it better to not train a person and they stay, or train a person and they leave? And over time, I've worked out that if I create learning plans for every staff member and I review them every 6 months, so no matter where they are in their journey with the business, they're always learning and growing, that growth and learning adds layers and layers and layers into the business. And if you worked in a business where you were trusted, you didn't have someone looking over your shoulder, you were never told about what your results should be, have this, that you're like, you're, it's hard to say boss, but your boss cares about your education over the years, and you're growing, and cares about your family, understands where you are in the big picture and big scheme of things, and acknowledges all the different elements, knows that, wait, tonight is a birthday party that you've organized for your partner, and comes to you and says, hey, today, go home at 3. And without you asking, has already told you that you're going to leave early so that you can be calm at the evening before. Fine. But where are you going to find that kind of workplace? Somewhere else. And ultimately, that's what you're trying to create. That basically, you're not trying to bribe anyone to stay, but you create such a culture that you want to stay. Because, it's you only really start thinking about leaving your work if there's been a pressure point. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a pressure point of if your boss is mean to you, or you don't like the people you work with, or you're not getting paid properly.
And then the rot kind of sets in and it becomes worse. And
that's it. Look, at my staff members or someone will probably listen to this, and they can probably attest to this, that I work out where the business is at. And I have a number. I have a number in my mind that basically this is how much I'd like to be earning. And it might be a certain number. Anytime I'm earning above that is actually a trigger for me that there's a problem in my business. Okay. And say, for example, you earned 60 grand more than you wanted to, or was your expectation. Okay. That 60 grand, by the time it hits your pocket, is around 30 grand.
Yep.
But that 60 grand is your potential to go and employ another person. Yeah. Because you know that money is there, that their income may be higher than that, but you've got that to begin and employ them. And if you're good at creating the work, you can actually make that 60 grand 120 or 180 in value to the business. And then you've got the same problem again, maybe double or triple that problem the following year. And then you've earned too much again, and then you can go and employ the next person. And so there's this little thing that sometimes business owners take the fact that they've earned money as a good thing. But it's actually, if you've left it in the business, I know it seems a little bit odd, I know, but it's a little bit counterintuitive. But I have triggers.
A little?
A lot. So there are triggers that tell me that I've earned too much and that money should have gone back into the business by employing the next person, which makes the rest of the team more efficient. And then we basically grow the team that way.
Hey, I want to ask you a little bit, because we've mentioned Lismore and your first business is 2,000 kilometers away in Lismore, and all that's happening there in Lismore with regards to the floods, etc. And, the kind of, it's really kind of shaking that town a little bit. I'd just like to ask you about setbacks in business. I'm interested in the kind of setbacks that you have had, and what is your attitude towards setbacks, besides smiling?
So in terms of the impact of Lismore, I think it's actually being underplayed. It's massive. It's horrific what's happening there. There are thousands of homes that have just been wiped out. And flood is very different, because if you think about your home, every pair of plants, every shirt, every child's toy, every book is destroyed. There's no rescuing anything. You're right. It is very heavy. But there's two ways that you can look at it. There's this grit or succumbing to it. And in terms of being a manager and a business owner, you basically have your whole team focusing on you. And you've got two options, literally two options. One of them is, oh my God, we should be closing the business. This is terrible. We're never going to be able to cope, or this, or we'll work it out. And the we'll work it out or having that faith is the sort of the gold standard that we all have always had in the team and focused on. And you basically, that's what you're focusing on. You're basically going, look, this is the standard. This is what we're going to work towards. There are people that are in a much worse position than us, and we'll work through it.
So this kind of smile and have faith philosophy, like I want to just challenge you a little bit on this, right? I mean, so is your team not kind of pushing back when you say, don't worry, guys, it's going to be okay? Aren't they seeing a dip in kind of numbers? Aren't they seeing, aren't they thinking about moving out of town and therefore leaving your business and therefore impacting that kind of community or that, that the strength of your business? Like, are they just really accepting this smile and have faith kind of philosophy?
I would like to say that, it's really had a huge impact, but it hasn't. We've been very fortunate that there is still work flowing through and working. And that community atmosphere. So I'll give you a little example here. A week before the flood, I employed an amazing staff member, Fleur. And she basically saw the office for about an hour. When she met the team, we employed her. She received her contract. The flood went through the weekend before she was meant to join. And so the first day I actually got to see her there was after the flood had gone through, and we were scraping the walls together and removing the walls.
Welcome to the team. Here's
welcome to the team.
Brush and
that. And so the team actually were like, hey, Sana, until the office gets up and running, Fleur can come and spend 2 days a week at our homes. And so Fleur ended up learning by going 2 days to one home, 2 days to another home, another day to another home, and basically rotating between the homes of the staff members. And that's how she learned. And she's phenomenal now. And she just basically got brought into the team, and that community, that energy ended up being how it sort of works. And that community feel is that you've got staff members that have children or are about to have kids. They call you to tell you, hey, we're pregnant. And they know that as a boss, you will be so excited for them because they're part of that community, and you'll make it work. It's like, okay, well, we'll work out what we can do in terms of how your workflow will be or how long you need away or all those kind of things. If you just smile, it always seems to work out, or you go in with that sort of that joy and energy that you'll solve it together. And it enables them to be more creative, and they want to stay, and you just work it out together.
Sana, I'm going to be smiling more. I'm going to be having a bit more faith after our conversation. And thank you. Thank you once again for coming in, and it's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
That's all we have from this conversation. I hope you got a bit of lift from that. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day ahead.